Hello and good morning friends, welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, we would like to tell you that today we would be conducting third lecture in the series graphics and print production. In our previous session we talked about letter forms. We would be continuing from where we left. We would be discussing more on the letter forms. Today we are going to discuss basically about the functions of the type, and that is under the type, and for this we have again with us in our studios Dr. N. Sarkar. He is a former associate professor at IIMC, as well as he has authored a book called Art and Print Production. So dear friends, let's take advantages from his experiences and try to understand more about type, the functions which he is going to discuss today in this lecture. So first of all, let's welcome our guest, Professor N. Sarkar. Hello sir, welcome to the EDISEC lecture.
Thank you, Gitika, and welcome viewers. This is my third lecture in this series. The series is Graphic and Print Production. I have discussed that there are three aspects of graphic, or the three components of graphics we use in designing and communication: the letter form, pictures and layout. So last lectures we have discussed the letter forms, and letter forms also there are three aspects we are supposed to discuss. Number one is the physical aspect, that how the letters are constructed. The second aspect is the functional aspects. Second aspect is the aesthetics aspect. Aesthetic aspects means the design style of hundreds of letters available in the market, because each one has got a different style. And the third aspects is the functional aspects. So today we are largely discussing the functional aspects of type. Type is, as we know, that it is a standard letter form. And I had explained in my previous lecture what do you mean by standard letter form. Standard letter forms are those letter forms which will remain constant throughout the compositions. That means a particular letter is appearing in 100 and 1000 times, it will remain the same, it will no change. Whereas the unstandard letter form like calligraphy or sonography, if you repeat the letters, there is a possibility and always it has happened that there will be change in the letters. But in communication, we generally use standard letter form. Of course, we have not eliminated the unstandard letter forms like sonographic letter forms or typographic letter or calligraphic letter forms. But our basic concern is the typographic letter forms. Type, and that's why we call it type. Type means standard letter forms. And today we are discussing the type font, type families and the functions. Now, type, as you know that type is a standard letter form. Font and families, often it is synonymous and we confuse with that, but it is not. Font is a generic term. That means we Indian, and within this India we have the families, that so many families constitute a nation. Same with the case of a font is basically a type style, and families are the variations of style. So let us understand a bit details. The type font, each character of how do you describe the font? Each character of type is designed in such a way that when they are arranged in a word or sentence, they look so harmonious that we call them font. So see this slide. In this slides we have used a particular font, and where all these letters characters are so harmonious, we cannot separate a letter from the other letters. They are so harmonious. And families in it is a see this example of the font. Say the top one is a particular font and second one is a particular font. You cannot mix them. If you mix them, then we call it is a wrong font. That means it is not going with the other one. That is a font. And a families means harmonious character, though harmonious characters of letters will be there in the type style, but in a group, and in this group containing various sizes, various styles, and various look. That is a family. Like our family, suppose we have a family like a family of Agarwal or Mittal or whatever it may be. In this family, we have got somebody is fat, somebody is thin, somebody is small, somebody is large. That is the way this constitutes a family. Same with the case of typography also. It is quite interesting that human life and the typographical life are almost the same, almost similar. We can really, many times we can compare with human being to typography. So, see this, the font. This is a font, and within the font there is a family called ringlet. And in this ringlet we have got a particular size. We can change the size, we can make this bold, we can make that light, we can make them italics. Same with the case of other font. Other font, this is a Arnold is the name of the family. These are all in the group of decorative styles. Here is another style, and it is also a font in which we find that all the characters are harmonious, but it is the same size, but that is why it is a font. But if we make the smaller, bigger, italics, bold, and that will be a family variations. The family variations are the three ways we can identify the family. Width-wise, how the letters are width-wise, how they look, and weight-wise, the thickness, how the thickness are. The width-wise, we can have the normal, condensed, expanded, whereas the weight-wise means optically they are heavy, light, or medium. And third one is the posture. Posture means how the letters are standing. There are basically two types of standings. One is a Roman standing, that means letters are standing straight, and the second one is the letters are standing italic, slightly standard right side. So, to make it much more, to make it clearer, you can see this, a particular font that is a lineal sans serif font, and in which various styles, it is an italics, it is normal, it is condensed, it is smaller, bigger, bolder. These are the example of a font families. But what family it is? It is a family of lineal sans serif. To explain you further, see the family variations. It can be identified as the weight. Weight-wise, the light, medium, and bold. The first group, you can see that how light it is. And the second one is a medium. Medium means it is neither too light nor too bold. The third one is a bold. Bold is a thick letters. So, it is a weight-wise. Eye can perceive is light, medium, and bold. It is very subjective. So, you cannot really measure it how light it will be. It is just like if you can identify a person, you can say, oh, he is a thin person. How do you say he is a thin person, or he is a fat person? Will you identify him by measuring the person by inch tape? Not at all, because you have experienced it by your eye is accustomed to see a person fat or thin or normal. Same with the case of typography or the type font, you can identify them light, medium, and bold. Just to explain you further, medium types are those types which are neither too bold nor too light. That means it is called medium because when the letters are arranged, it occupies certain space. The letter strokes occupy certain space, and certain space occupied by the background or the white space. So, both the things combined create an illusion to the eyes that is a gray tone or gray color, which is pleasing to your eyes. So, that will be called medium. It is white background and black strokes. It is almost 50-50, then it gives a medium look of the typographical composition. So, if this is the standard, then if it is lighter than this, that means if it is 50% white and 50% black or black strokes, then we call medium. Then if it is less than 50% of the black strokes, then it will be called lighter. And if it is more than 50% of the black strokes, and it will be called bold. And it cannot be 100% of black, because 100% will make the letters solid. So, this is the This is a comparison you can do it so that you can identify or you can separate from light, medium and bold. Width, how much expanded it is. Width, then from left to right how much it is. It is a normal width. Normal means when a person you can find normal, and if it is a person fat, then you can, oh, it is a fat person, then it is expanded. Or if a person is thin, you can call it is a condensed and compressed. So that is the way you can identify the width. Then third aspect is the posture, how the letters are standing. There are two types of standing, you can say. One is a Roman posture, that means standing straight, and another is the Italic posture, which is slightly right. These are two types of postures. There are two types of posture, Roman posture and Italic postures. So these are the family variations. So now we are going to discuss the function of the type composition. Function. What is the function of type composition? What for? We use letters. All of you know the letters are used meant for reading. Reading is a basic function. Unless you can read it, you cannot understand the message. You cannot understand you cannot communicate. So reading is a basic function. So for the purpose of reading, the readability is to be considered the basic things. Readability, what do you know readability? When you are reading, your eyes are moving to the typographic composition, moving to your typographic composition gradually. And when it is moving, it is working just like a camera. When you are shooting pictures, then what do? You identify the object and make it clear and allow the light to come into your camera through your lens, so that you can capture the image. Here also you are capturing the image of letters through your eyes. Eye is identifying it and it is capturing in your brain, and you are processing it and responding to it and you are communicating. Now, when you are reading, then there are three categories of types we are reading. For our convenience, we have divided into three categories. One is a text category, second is a display category, third is a poster category. Text. Readers are involved maximum in text, that is the small letters we read in newspaper and books. So we want to read as many letters as possible within your eye focus. When your eye is focusing on a page, a certain number of words coming within your eye focus, those letters will be clear to your eyes. You identify them, process it, your eye will focus to the next group of letters. So your eye has the capacity to capture those letters, and typographer recommends that it is a 5.5, 5.2, 12-point type size in case of Roman letters. I am talking about Roman letters. There are some variations of other languages, slight variations, but as we are discussing type, and we are taking the basic of typographic composition is the Roman type composition. The Roman type, when you are reading the 5 and 5.2, 12-point type will come within your eye focus, and after reading it, you can go to the next group of letters. You cannot read a whole newspaper at a time. Can you read a whole page of book at a time? No. Certain words will come within your eye focus, and it will go to linear progression, and linear, one by one you will identify the word, and it will go to the next end of the line, and your eye is identifying the word and processing it. Because the large number of words should be accommodated within the space, the size should be small enough, but eye has the capacity. Then if it is less than 5 point, it is too small, that will be strenuous to your eyes. And if it is larger than this, larger than 12 point, it will be too big. And when it will be too big, then less number of words will come within your eye focus. That's why it is recommended that your text composition should be 5 point to 12 point. Of course, there are different way we select the type composition, that is the age of the person, then the education of the person, and all these things matter a lot in selecting the text type. Next is the display type. Display type, a type size which is bigger than 12 point, that is 13 point to 72 type size, we call it display type. Display type is used for heading and subheading. What is the basic function of heading and subheading? Heading is basically used for attract the attention of the reader, and heading also summarize the content. That means when you are attracted by the heading, then you get an idea whether you are ready to or you are willing to go to the text or not. That is the basic purpose. That is why type size is large, and it is not so lengthy. Headings are not so lengthy lines, and few number of words will be within the heading, and you can easily identify them because of its size, and also you can easily identify, or you can take a decision whether you will read the text or not. The third category of the types we read, that is a poster type. This category of type is above the 72 point. Any type size you can take as a type, it is a poster type. That means if it is for poster type, these types are not measured by the unit of pica scale. It is because these types are used as the pictures. Pictures are used in a design or layout. It is occupies some space. This area is measured the how much area it has occupied. So that this function is completely different than the text and display type. So not much of rules are framed for display type for poster type, because it will be used as a pictures. Now next is readability of the typographic composition depends on various aspects. Number one is the writer's idea, how the writers are reading. The writers are writing and readers are reading. Then if the writer's idea is interesting, the people will read it. The second is the language. If the language is not known to you, will you be able to read it? Will you be able to read a Japanese or Chinese language? No. Many North Indian will not be able to South Indian languages. Why? Because the language you don't know. That's why if the letters are beautiful, even then you cannot read it. So you cannot call them as a readable type for you who are reading it. The construction of sentences. Many times the typographic compositions are constructed by sentences which are complicated, flowery words, languages, and which will hinder in reading the composition. So that will not be considered readable for the general people. Then reader's interest. Reader's interest. If you don't have the reader reading the text, then why should you read it? In the newspaper you find so many typographical compositions. Will you read all this? Are you interested to read the tender notices of an organization in which you have no interest? But definitely the person who is interested, he or she will read it. If you are finding an accommodation in a big city, if it is a small letters in a very corner of a page, you will try to find out because your interest is there. So the readability will depend on the various aspects. So anyway, we are not discussing all these aspects in these lectures. We are basically concerned in these lectures, that is the legibility for design. In design, how the letters to be presented legibly. Now, first of all, the word legible should be to be cleared. What do you mean by legible? Legibility. Legibility means clarity of letters in a composition. And individual letters may be beautiful. 2-3 letters in a composition may be looking beautiful, but when is a number of letters are creating a word, and if it is not clearly visible, clearly identifiable, how can I call it letters? Take an example. A page is composed by a decorative letters, fancy letters. Will you be able to read it? Not at all. So, we will not call it legible one. So, we will consider the legible one which is comfortably you can understand it. That is called legibility, legible type. So, legibility depends on various factors. As because the various factors determine the legibility, typographers and type experts had developed a certain rules. Typographers have developed certain rules of legibility. So, let us understand these rules which will help the users of type effectively. So, legibility rules for text matter, text type composition. Most of the rules are framed for text type composition. I think you could recall the text type means 5-point type to 5 to 12-point type. Because the rules are framed for this type, it is because readers are mainly involved in reading text. So, if it is not legible, he or she will not be able to go through the page comfortably. So, we should follow certain rules, and that will help in selecting the types in your composition. As I told you, there are hundreds of styles are available and there are different variations are available. We must choose a type style and there are various variations and various type of composition, and to make it comfortable to the reader so that it can go through the page very comfortably. Legibility rules. Legibility rules, the first one, the face style. Whenever you are choosing a type style for your composition, you are confused. Why? Because there are hundreds of styles, which one to use and which one not to use. Which one not to use? That is a big question to a communicator. So, a communicator recommends, if it is a long text, always your choice between classical Roman, the type style with having thick and thin stroke with serif, and lineal sans serif. Classical Roman is much more preferable because of its thick and thin strokes, and the serif helps in horizontal movement. Thick and thin strokes create a rhythm on a typographic composition. What do you mean by rhythm? Rhythm means it is just like a sea wave and one wave going to the other wave. When you spot a wave and your eye will go one to one and it will take you further. That means when you are spotting a letter and next letter is another same rhythm, then your eye will move to the page horizontally. That is why typographer recommends that classical Roman is the most preferable type styles for text composition. Linear style is also preferable, but it is not as preferable as classical Roman because of its basic characteristics, that is the uniform strokes. Uniform strokes in a composition create a monotonous effect on your mind. Monotony brings passiveness. That means your reading speed may reduce. That is why comparison between lineal and classical, that classical is preferable. But of course, many times for the sake of creating the mood of the typographic composition, we use lineal. For example, as I told you that lineal types are modern types. If you are thinking about a history books, perhaps linear style will not be preferable. It will be classical Roman will be possible. But if you are talking about the mobile phone, article on mobile phone, it is a modern technology. So, when you are talking about mobile phone, and always you will prefer to use and lineal types. And if you please notice it that the text available in your mobile phone largely on lineal styles, because it goes with a modern look. Other phases such as handwritten, decorative, fancy are not used in long text. It is because they are illegible, but definitely for short type composition you may use it to create different type of moods. For example, if you want to create an invitation card, naturally you want to create a personal mood in it. It is your personal touch in it. So if it is handwritten style, it will give a flavor of that, though the slightly read difficulty, but in the invitation card you may not have the as long as your book page. Say with the case of marriage card, greeting cards, fancy letters are much more preferable. But remember, these types should be as less as possible, otherwise it will be difficult to read for the reader or the viewer. Second aspects, size. As I have already mentioned, that text type should not be too small or too big. Naturally, too small will be difficult to read it, or to be difficult to identify it, or it will be strenuous to your eyes. Or also, it will accommodate so much letters and it will be difficult to comprehend all these letters. If it is big size, then also you will be able to accommodate very few words in your composition. Choice between uppercase and lowercase. LC means uppercase, UC means uppercase, capital letters and small letters. This is the terminology we used in our profession. UC uppercase, LC lowercase. Lowercase letters are always preferable in text compositions. It is because when they are arranged, each word is identified as different shape because of its descendants and ascendants, and easily identifiable. Whereas, if the letters are all in capital letters, it will create a rectangular block of each letters, and there is a possibility the confusion between the first letter and second letter and so on, and that will reduce the reading speed, because when you are reading, you are not reading the words by spelling each letter. You are reading block by block, and first of all you identify the block, then you identify the word, because you attain certain proficiency when you start reading it. A child will read CAT, cat, BAT, but perhaps an educated person will not read like that. He or she will look at the word and he will identify what it is. What it is. Each letter will not be, it is not necessary to identify. So that's why small letters with ascendant and descendants are easily identifiable in compared to capital letters. Have you ever seen any book written all in capital letters? Have you ever seen any newspaper in all capital letters? It is because of that. Because it is not possible to read and in a certain speed. That's why always is preferable to have the text type in small letters or the lowercase letters. Spacing is another aspect of letter composition. Spacing, there are 4 types of spacing we can consider. Number 1 is letter spacing, number 2 word spacing, number 3 line spacing, number 4 is paragraph spacing. Letter spacing, generally we can get it in a default computer command, because it is already designed in such a way that automatically sketch will be formed, that is called. But many times it can be controlled. You can compress the letter spacing so that you can accommodate more words in a line, or also for artistic look also you can compress, that is possible. Word spacing, generally a word spacing is created automatically but also here also you can increase the word spacing and you can decrease the word spacing. But remember, if you increase, what will happen? the letters will be separated, as you can see it from the slides. The letters are separated. It is too far away from one word to another word. That will reduce the reading speed. If it is too close, then one word will mix up with another letters. That is also the way we find it difficulty in reading the text. So, your word spacing should be normal, but for the sake of accommodating the composition, sometimes we can control it a bit, and which will be uniformly distributed among the words, and that will not look bad, too much bad. That depends on the users of the type and how interestingly, how pleasingly he or she wants to create the composition. Remember, type composition, making the type composition is the duty of the compositor, not only the compositor, but the creative person, because your basic purpose is make it comfortable to the reader. If it is uncomfortable, reader will not read the message, whatever may be the good message you are sending. But if it is uncomfortable to read, then naturally he or she will skip the message. Line spacing, another area. Line spacing, normal, tight, and loose spacing depending on the type size, style, and the line length. Type size, if the type size is too big, then your line spacing should be too little, should be too little. If the type size is carrying the long descenders, some of the type style having the long descenders and ascenders. So in that case, your line space should be less, because this ascender descenders will automatically give a look of the spacing. Then line length. If the line length is too long, your line spacing should be less. Should be more. It is because when you are reading the line, then you are starting with the first letter or first word, and we are going at the end. When you are coming back to the second line, there is a possibility that you are repeating the line, or you are skipping the line, because by the time you have come back, you have forgotten from where you have started. So remember, the line length will determine the space between the lines. If it is line longer, then create more space, so that you can avoid this problem of repeating the line or skipping the line. The paragraph lines, paragraph spacing. Paragraph is the writer's concept. When you are reading a particular topic, and each paragraph will be the subtopic, and which will be slightly different than the previous or following topic. Visually also, if it is not presented, the reader will not be able to understand this concept. So paragraph lines, so indented line, you understand it. Indented line means you are starting the line with a short space at the beginning of the line, which will separate from one paragraph to another paragraphs. But here is a problem in this indented line. That means if the paragraph's end line is just finished till the end of the line, then there is a confusion between the one paragraph to another paragraphs. So best way should be, if you have the indented line, then give a little space. A half line space will be adequate between the lines. If you don't have the indentation, nowadays is a modern typography. Without indentation also, we can find the typographical composition. In this situation, at least one line space should be given between the paragraphs. Or depending on the type size, you can decide how much points space should be given between the paragraphs, so that you can easily identify or separate between the one paragraph to another paragraphs. Weight of the type. Weight means the optical weight. Optically you can feel the letter is heavy and light. Text type is concerned, medium is always preferable. As I told you that medium weight types means the letter strokes are not so dark and background is not so light, or it is a 50-50. The stroke of the letters, if it is black, then white background, and together it creates an illusion of gray mass which is comfortable to eyes. So most of the typographic composition, text type composition, you will find it in medium weight type. Of course, boldface can be used for variations. Some of the things have to be highlighted, then or some of the things will be given emphasis. Then you can use the bold types, but not long text, because long text is difficult to read if it is in bold type. Light faces are not used in text type composition at all. Why? Because identifying the words in light face is very strenuous to our eyes. So definitely should not be used at light face for text composition. Reverse type. Reverse types mean dark background and light letters. This slide is in reverse type. Of course, you can read this type because the words are not too many. Had it been in a long text, it would have been very difficult to read it. So reverse type means light letters or the white letters and background dark. Never used reverse types for long text, which will be difficult to read. Many times for the sake of design we use it without realizing how difficult it will be for the reader to read the text. Line length. Can you read a newspaper from the first column to last column without column break? As I told you that it is not possible to read because by while discussing the paragraph, I have told you that it will happen. What will happen? That you are going to read the line again or skip the line. That's why line length should be appropriate so that this problem will not arise. Here typographer recommends, and try to understand it very carefully. Typographer recommend line length should be in picas. You know picas in my physical structure of type. I have discussed pica because types are always measured by pica scale. The line length should be in picas, and if the type size is used, and it should be twice the line length, I repeat, the type size you are using should be twice in size but in picas. That means if you are using a 10-point type for your text composition, your line should be 20 picas. That is a general rule. If it is 18-point type, if you have a 9-point type, your line length should be 18 picas, and so on. 10-point type, 20 pica. But since typographic composition is not a mechanical composition, it is also an art. It also involves aesthetics. So you cannot restrict to the rules. Many times you cannot. Then if you cannot restrict to the rules, what is the solution? So if the line length is not coming within the formula, that means 9-point type with 18 pica line length, then you can increase the space between the lines so that the repetition of the line and the skipping of the line will not occur. Hope it will clear. I will repeat the rule is line length should be double the type size being used. That is, type size is 10 point, line length would be 20 pica. Type size is 11 point and line length will be 22 pica. That's why in the newspaper you will find line length is too small. Why? Because type size of newspaper is very small. The book is concerned, the line length is wider, but type size, though the type size is small, but they have increased the space between the lines. So these things, if you can remember, and you can make the typographic content legible for the reader. Setting format of the typographic composition. What do you mean by setting format? The way type composition has occupied the space. All the type composition will occupy certain area of the page. And there are different formats available called justified, lines are aligned both sides. Second one is left aligned, line is only left, whereas right side is ragged. Right aligned, right side is aligned, and left side is ragged. And centered. Centered means the composition is divided in two parts by imaginary center line. For example, this particular slides is centered format, center format. See this composition, justified composition where the types are aligned both sides. It is justified format. It is the most commonly used format and considered most legible. Why it is called legible? Because when you are reading, then your eye is traveling a certain distance, and after traveling the distance, you are going to the second line, you are traveling the same distance, and third line, you are traveling the same distance. That means your eye is accustomed to travel the distance given in a typographic composition. So that helps in reading the text faster than other composition. That's why most of the type compositions are justified. Left aligned is another type of composition, is also very commonly used, but left aligned composition, there is a problem is that if the typographic composition in two columns, and you will find an irregular shape of white space between the columns, which may sometimes create a problem or identifying the composition slightly. So it is not commonly used, but many times you will find, open a newspaper, you will find most of the columns are justified, but in between they have given some left aligned format as well. Why it is so? Because the designer wants that particular one should be separated from the other, and it should not be mixed up, and slightly different way they want to present the story. So right aligned is not common at all. Why? It is because when you are traveling the distance and when you come to the second line and you are looking for the line because you have not started from the same place. That's why you take little time or a fraction of a second. So this way each line, if you take a fraction of a second, that means your reading speed is reduced and will not be considered a legible composition. So these are avoided most of the typographic composition. Center aligned, also not very legible. Why? Because it is left side is ragged, right side is all ragged, and if it is long text, it is difficult to go to the compositions, because you know that your starting line, you are looking for the starting line, and your ending line is not the same place, and it will reduce the legibility. But of course, you can use it for if the typographical composition in short, like invitation card, editorial page, etc. Otherwise, it is not used for long text, books, newspaper, etc. or promotional literature. Type in color. Text type type in color should be avoided. Why? Because composition will be much more legible when letters are in contrast, and the contrast can be obtained only when the letters are in dark like black and the background is white. So, these are the maximum contrast we can create. That is why most of the time you will find the letters composition are on white background and black letters. Many times we may think about color also, but think about a page headline is green color, subheadlines in yellow color, text in the blue color. That will look very attractive, they will look beautiful, but when the functional aspect of type is concerned, that is a legibility or readability, will you be able to read it comfortably? So, if at all you want to use a composition in color, make it a slightly bolder and also dark color. Say, if you are using a red color, maybe maroon color will be preferable for the text, but again the background should be completely white. If the background is slightly lighter color, then also use slightly bold color, a bold typeface. Mixed styles, never used. A style, a composition, a paragraph in classical Roman, another paragraph in lineal Sans Serif, another paragraph in Helvetica, another paragraphs in Optima, that will be difficult to read, or you will not be able to find that continuity of the text. So, never use mixed style in your typographic composition of same design. Now, I am coming to the legibility rules of display type composition. Display type, as you know, display type start from 13 point to 72 point. I have already explained you the display type is used for heading and subheading, and it is generally the bigger and bolder. It follows a separate rule than the text type composition, because text type contain large number of words, whereas the display type contain and few words. So, the rules will be different from the text type. The first of all, the face. Which face style should be chosen? The face style, lineal and classicals are common for any headline. Fancy letters also can be used for composition to give a particular mood of the design. For example, you are talking about an article on gardening. Gardening is a fancy things. If you want to make the gardening a letters in a slightly fancy style, it will give a flavor of the article. But definitely you cannot use the text same style, because it will be very difficult to read it, or it will be illegible. Decorative face should be used cautiously. Why I have mentioned these things? Because many times decorative face can confuse the reader, and some of the styles are so confused and you cannot read the headline. Format, as you know, format means how the typographical composition has occupied the space. Headline should be in any format except justified. It can be left align, it can be right align, it can be centered, but justified. If it is justified, then what will happen? See this headline in justified format, and you find so much space between the two words of the second lines. So, it is not at all recommended for justified headline. Had it been in left line, and you can read it easily. Headline also should be, if it is a long headline, it should be broken into sub-headlines. Otherwise, long headline difficult to comprehend. Spacing. Spacing, automatic spacing may not serve the purpose many times, especially curved line and straight line. See this heading, that letters India Today. See, when there are straight lines, I, N, D and I, all these are straight lines. See the uniform space between the lines. But between the A and I, there is too much space. That's why it has narrowed down the space and it is coming closer to the I. And the same way, if you write today, you have written it Y, between A and Y, there is too much space. But at the last revised one, that today A and Y, if is optically it has been arranged, Y has been brought closer to the A, so that the space between the Y and A reduced and it will be optically squeezing. Words in capital letters need more line spacing than lowercase letters. See this capital letters, the spacing between the lines is too little and it will be difficult to read. Had it been in long heading, and it would be difficult to read. So if the space, if the letters are all capital letters, increase the space to make it legible. Optical line spacing is pleasing than compact line spacing. Weight. Weight, as you know, weight means large size type and heavy weight create a sharp contrast which is easy to identify. Different mood and meaning can be created by graphic shapes, weight, posture, tint and color. See some example. See these letters, mother and child. Between the word mother and child is created the mood, and the shape of the child and showing that the child is in the mother's womb. The families, the three dots of the families creating the mood of the families. Tour and travel, the letters are slightly italics and giving the movement. It is creating the mood of the particular letters. Take the example of this advertisement. Such a beautiful way it has been, the typography has been used. You have ignited the flame for women's safety. The color used, the flame, it has highlighted by the red color. And also the graphic shape, the women biological symbol used in this particular advertisement to identify the word O. So the mood of the advertisement is created by the color and the graphic shape. Space around the headline. The headline should get enough space to stand out, to identify. A line with wide white space stand out in the design. Short lines need less space than long lines. Reverse lines are legible at appropriate places. For example, take the headline space around of the slide. It is a reverse headline, so it can stand out. Spacing of headlines. It is commonly used, spacing of headlines at the top of the article, top of the space, top of the publication, but slightly down below or at the side, it is not uncommon. But if the headline is slightly slanted or vertical, it will be difficult to read. Curve or any artistic form of headlines are interesting for some design. Take an example. This is artistic headlines. It is interesting in a particular design. See this headline in this particular advertisement. It is so ugly, and because the headline, they have abbreviation and hyphenized word and reduce the quality of headline. To improve these things, see this one, that improved left line and this abbreviation is not there, or the the hyphenate word is not there, that make the headlines stand out in an advertisement. Thank you.
With this note, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for giving deep insight into this very topic. Dear friends, if you want to access this particular lecture, you can access it with the help of YouTube, or if you have any queries, you can mail us at info.cec@nic.in. With this note, thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. Hope you have enjoyed the lecture.
Thank you.